know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotta Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley. Joining us today... Oh, shit, I fucked that up.
And as usual, I'm your co-host, Dylan Hensley. Joining us today...
should I leave that in, or should we take it from the side?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a blooper for the end.
Yeah.
Joining us today, we have not one, but two guests with us. We have McD and Rena Hagins of the Washington, D.C. band Bacchae. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, this is interesting. We've only had this many people on the line one other time, and they were in the same room together, so it made it a little easier. But so we'll try and make sure not to talk over each other. But I wanted to talk about your band a little bit. Bacchae just put out a record earlier this year on Get Better Records called Pleasure Vision, and I wanted to say that it's easily one of the best records of 2020.
Thank you.
It's a perfect blending of like punk and post-punk, new wave and hardcore, and like every DC sound kind of mashed up into one. How has the reaction been for the record?
Well, it's been pretty interesting because we had our record release on March 6th, 2020, and that was the last show of like the year for us. We were so excited about the release show and like really hyped about being able to go on tour and everything. And then like the next week, everything shut down due to COVID-19. So it's been a different shift with like how we thought this year was going to go with the record. But we are really, really, really thankful that we got to at least do one show before the country pretty much just shut down. It was like literally a week later. So I don't know. It's been pretty eye-opening to like think about like any sorts of promotional like approaches to this music virtually. And we've just been trying to adapt as best that we can because we definitely would be on tour and like going out and playing shows. So it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, it's been weird. Like we were supposed to be on tour with Alice Bag this past week, and it was really sad getting the like notification, like our Google Calendar notification, like oh, this is the first day of tour.
Yeah. You're in your house, you're depressed.
Yeah, I've got a Google notification on my calendar that has been there since I bought tickets to see Bikini Kill in August, and it's like, oh, well, it got moved to like November of next year, so it's like, well, at least my tickets are still good, but that notification's still there, just reminding me. It's like, can't go anywhere, but
same thing.
I was just scrolling through pictures on my phone yesterday, which I don't recommend these times, and just seeing pictures from Fest from the last several years, and like I was not that excited about Fest this year. I had low expectations for it, and now I really, really wish it was happening, and I wish I was going.
Well, like that's interesting because this was going to be our first year playing Fest, and we were very, very excited that we finally booked it because we've been trying to get on Fest for the entirety of our band career over the past like few years, and we're like, yeah, like 2020, we finally made it on the Fest lineup, and then of course it's moved till next year, but we'll see if 2021 happens and people are able to like knock this COVID stuff out and actually like wear a mask and social distance so that we can be healthy and happy and move forward.
Go a little deeper as I'm sitting to the side, heartbeat and a headache and there's nowhere left to hide.
funny. I saw the not a notification. I think I saw it on like your Spotify at the very bottom where it has like the show dates.
Yeah.
And which like it only shows you every once in a while. It's weird. And I saw that your name was on there, and I was like, were they on the posters the first time around? I couldn't remember.
No, like I think it was just like in many more. We were just in the many more.
Yeah, we were the many.
Yeah.
That's where all the good stuff is.
Yeah, but we're on the website and we're slated to play next year.
Yeah.
We do, so we'll see what happens.
Hopefully. It's so hard to tell at this point, but it's interesting because like this was your second full length, is that correct?
So the first one that we did, I mean, Down the Drain, like I personally refer to that as like an extended demo because we just like put on every single song that we had made during that time as a band. Like we made a 4-song demo and then we re-recorded a lot of the songs that were on that onto Down the Drain. And it just wasn't like a cohesive, planned out album the way that Pleasure Vision is now with our new record.
Okay, yeah, I was curious about that because I was wondering what, like, if this was your second record, then like, I'm surprised it took this long to get you on Fest because even the last EP came out on Get Better.
Yeah, we released that in 2018 on Get Better in the spring, and like that was like a really big shift for Bacchae with it reaching more people, especially with the help of Get Better Records and having more distribution there and like a bigger platform to promote the music was just really helpful for people to learn more about us. But it kind of has been like a slow burn, which is totally fine. Like, I mean, it's been fun and we've been able to like hone in on like our style and sound over the past several years. Like, I guess we've officially been a band for 4 years in August, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Like August 8th is our like bandiversary, as we say, and it will be 4 years. So wild.
That's awesome. I distinctly remember seeing announcements from Get Better before the record out was saying like Buckeye's got a new one coming soon. I was like, I don't know this band, so I went and checked them out. I was like, the EP out, and I was like, oh shit, this is good. I'm looking forward to the record. So when I say it's one of my favorite records of the year, I genuinely mean it. It's like in the top 5 for me. So like, and who knows how many more rotations I get? It'll probably knock it closer to like 1 or 2. So it's great.
Well, thank you. It means a lot. I'm glad to hear that you're listening.
Yeah, I actually even talked. This was kind of surreal. Just by sharing your music on Twitter, I got like one of my musical like heroes to buy it.
What?
Billy Power. He's in New York. He was in the band Blenderhead.
What kind of music is Blenderhead? We're definitely gonna look them up now.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They were on Tooth and Nail Records, so if that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that label.
They're very much influenced by Jawbox and Discord Records type stuff.
Okay.
When did they break up? What, early 2000s?
Yeah. Sometime.
I think, did they record that record with J. Robbins too? I want to say.
Actually, I think it was.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was going to ask you about J. Robbins actually.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him?
Oh my goodness, like
Amazing.
Just such huge fans of Jay. Like that was one of the best experiences of 2019, just working with him for several days at his studio. Like I had so much fun and he was just such a pleasure to work with. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna totally be like a fan person right now. Like, go ahead, Katie.
He's just such a genuinely nice and kind like individual and hilarious, and it was just like a pleasure working with him like as a human being, but also, you know, he's so good at audio engineering, so it was just great watching him, you know, like just set everything up, and he was so patient, like just like endless patience. Yeah, we had a blast recording with him. And I would recommend recommend him as an audio engineer to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he was just such a joy to work with, and like just really, really like listened to what we wanted to accomplish with this record and just made it all happen.
Yeah, even like he was just so like the rough mixes, we were like, oh, like there, like nothing needs to be changed. Like this is a rough mix. Holy shit. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I've only ever heard good things about Jay as a producer and an engineer. I mean, and just having listened to plenty of records, he's clearly got a great ear. But everyone has said the same thing. Like, it's just, he's such an awesome, nice, sincere, really capable engineer.
Yeah, it just feels like you've known him for so long. I mean, like, admiring like his music and that, like, outside of like his recording like endeavors, it's just like so interesting to like see him on stage performing and then like working with him in the studio, and like it's just like Jay Robbins knows who our band is now, which is just mind blowing, you know? Like, that's so cool, and we got to produce this product together, like, as a team. It just felt like he was like part of the crew. So yeah, highly recommend.
Did any of you get to see Jawbox before the whole shutdown started?
Yeah, I got to go to one of the DC shows on that reunion cycle that they did, and it was awesome. It was at 930 Club.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I saw him in Chapel Hill in February, so like it was the tail end there. But yeah, it was incredible. Like, we saw them at Fest last year too, and they were amazing there too. But like seeing them in more like an intimate setting instead of like a giant outdoor stage was just like, holy shit. And we use one of their songs as like our intro music on the show too. So so it's just,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
Just a quick correction in case anyone went and searched. Jay Robbins did not produce the last Blunderhead record. He did produce the last Roadside Monument record, which is the same drummer. Thus the Mental Clinic. But yeah.
Well, cool. So we can get into I guess a little bit more of the meat of the show. So the premise of this show is that we assign our guests a year, and then they pick an album for us to talk about. And before we get to the record y'all picked, we assigned you the year 2003.
So it's your time on me, you're already the voice inside my head. So like the angel you are, you left creating a lightness in my chest. So don't talk until you take a walk in my shop. What the fuck? I guess you shit out of luck. They make all the right reasons to fuck it up. You gotta fuck it up.
And we'd like to take a look at what else came out that year. So, Dylan, why don't you lead the way? What was 2003 musically for punk?
Lots of screamo, lots of crazy post-hardcore, lots of emo, even some like garage rock, post-punk revival type stuff. And I think all of that directly relates to the record that we're talking about. But some big records, personally, I think probably the biggest record for me from 2003 is Right Now You're in the Best of Hands. I'm not going to read the whole title. By Bear vs. Shark.
Yeah, it was an odd year. I was trying to think of like what the overall sound was, and you're right, it's the more like post-hardcore, more screamo based. Even like there's a lot of noisier stuff as well. Like Blood Brothers put out Burn Piano Island Burn, which was like kind of their biggest record. But then if you look at more like mainstream type stuff, you have like Thursdays, War All the Time, and we have a Poison the Well record, which I guess is more metalcore. But
Speaker Box, The Love Below by Outcast.
Yeah.
My favorite non-punk, non-rock album from 2003.
Yeah, and I mean, there was like a lot of pop punk around that time too. Like, it was just like very heavy with like Fall Out Boy, Yellow Card, and things like that.
Yeah, it's an odd. I'm trying to remember like what it was like in 2003, because I would have been 15 or 16 maybe, and I wasn't really into like the more melodic stuff at the time. I was mainly into shitty metalcore, but yeah, it was definitely more of an aggressive like sounding era. One big record that was huge for me in 2003 was Beloved's Failure On.
That was my first hardcore CD. Okay. still such a great record.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess on the more melodic side of things, Lawrence Arms put out The Greatest Story Ever Told. Against Me put out The Eternal Cowboy. The Exploding Hearts, which we just recently talked about, put out Guitar Romantic.
That would have been my next choice if we weren't talking about the album that we talked about, just that we're going to talk about. I love Exploding Hearts.
Yeah. I reread like what happened at the end there because it'd been a long time since I'd really like heard the story, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It was super tragic how that went down because they were like slated to be like this like next big thing, and yeah, gone way too soon. But
The War on Errorism by NoFX.
Yeah.
We're in the Rock Against Bush era for sure.
Oh yeah.
A more, I guess, maybe a more enjoyable, politically minded band from that time period. CVA by Painted Black also came out in 2003. So.
I love that album. We got to play with Painted Black 2 years ago, and I like completely lost my mind because they're one of my favorite bands, and it was just such a dream come true.
I didn't realize they were still playing. I guess just kind of locally, right?
It was like a one-off. It was for Alpine Souls Stoked for the Summer. So we did a pre-show with them, Screaming Females, and Here's also on Get Better Records, and it was in Asbury Park, and it was so much fun.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a stacked lineup.
Yeah, it was such an incredible show.
Yeah, there's this venue there called the House of Independence, and it's a nice, like, pretty small, like it's like auto bar size if you're from Baltimore, DC area, kind of.
Yeah, I bought one of those shirts that they put up for sale not too long ago.
They raised so much money.
Yeah, like I guess part of it was due to like one, it was going towards like an actual really good cause, and then two, Painted Black doesn't really do merch that often, so it was something really cool to see.
Yeah, I love everybody in that band. They're such like special people and so talented.
I guess the biggest record that's like punk related that came out in 2003 is probably the self-titled record by Blink-182.
Yeah, that was on our list as well. Blink-182 was my first concert. Like I've talked about this like in another interview. Like my mother took me and some friends to see Blink-182, and I was so mortified because they got on stage and they were just like, let's give it up for like all this disgusting, like inappropriate sexual stuff. And I was like, no, my mother, like, and also like my little tiny ears, like I can't be listening to this. But I was super embarrassed. But great show. Still love the band.
What's the big single off that record? Oh, I Miss You. Yeah.
Yeah. I was singing that song around the house for like days after looking at this list, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. Like, I'm just like so annoying.
One really, really cool record that I love that's on here, or I say on here, it came out in 2003. Please Inform the Captain, this is Hijack, put out their self-titled record. I am a massive fan of any Sarah Kirsch band, like Torches to Rome, Navio Forge, Fuel, like literally every band she has ever been a part of. I just absolutely adore. So that record is kind of, I guess Bread and Circuits were the beginning of the like sampling stuff that they would do, or that Sarah's bands would wind up doing. But I guess Please Inform the Captain was kind of like going for it, kind of like what Vader Brains would do. And what was the other one? Mother Country Motherfucker. Yeah. I love her bands, so that's a big deal for me.
I did notice that in another record that I do distinctly remember coming out in 2003 and listening to a lot as a 13-year-old was Two Lefts Don't Make It Right, but Three Do by Reliant K.
Oh, Reliant K. Oh my gosh. How did I miss that on the list? Wow.
It's a couple pages back, but yeah.
I feel like I was a little bit younger, and I feel like everything that I was listening to was super embarrassing. Like, or maybe not that embarrassing, like Linkin Park, Meteora, and AFI Sing the Sorrow, and like, I don't know.
I definitely had that AFI CD.
Mars Volta.
Oh.
It's funny. I listened to that record this week just to like kind of get in the mood of 2003, and I was like, this is where they should have stopped. Just right here.
AFI?
No, the Mars Volta record.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I guess AFI could have stopped at that record too, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Deloused in the comatorium.
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. My brother was in a Mars Volta cover band in high school.
Oh my gosh, do you have any footage of this?
Oh God. You know what? I don't think I do, but I think one of my friends, like moms, might, like on a VHS game.
Oh, sick.
And like I remember them playing at like a talent show, and everybody in the audience was just like, "What is this shit?" Like everyone was so confused.
I can totally see your brother doing something like that. That's awesome.
Ted Lieu's Hearts of Oak came out in 2003.
I love that album too.
Well, speaking of embarrassing, Dylan, there was a Slick Shoes record that came out in 2003 called Far From Nowhere. That was on Side One Dummy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, they were credible enough.
They were good at their instruments, and
Yeah. I mean, they weren't. They were from what? One of those like north of LA desert towns. They had nothing to do but play guitar and get really good.
Yeah, it's also the year of Something Corporate and Armor for Sleep. Yeah, that wave of emo, Fall Out Boy. Yeah, we mentioned earlier.
It's also the year of some bigger, more mainstream names, I guess. Transatlanticism by Death Cab.
Death Cab. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. How did I guess I just like zeroed in on like the one that like I wanted to talk about and like other ones, and I just completely forgot that Death Cab released that album, and that's like such a like awesome record, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't actually take a look at like the non like punk related records that came out this year.
Elephant by the White Stripes.
Was that Seven Nation Army?
Probably where they should have stopped. Yes.
Yeah, definitely where they should have stopped.
But Jack White is saving the vinyl industry.
Yeah.
Single-handedly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also the year of Give Up by Postal Service.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's
I didn't realize those were in the same
Postal
year.
Service and Death Cab. Like, great.
Well, unless there's anything else like that we have to specifically talk about, we can get into our album.
Yeah.
Cool. So we gave you the year 2003, and you selected Black Eyes by Black Eyes.
Sunset behind that chain link fence. You put that tiny candle in my hand. You put that chrism on my forehead with your fingers crossed. You held my wrist, now I'll never forget that pebble pushing up and into my knee. You set the sky light up, you set the sky light up, and all the kids in the playground waiting for the light up. You set the skies lit sign, you set the skies lit sign, and I was watching the blue in your eyes come by. You set the sky light up, you set the sky light up, and we were all waiting for. And all I feel anymore, no I can't see anymore. I didn't like it, I was excited by it. What will I say when I get home? I'm in the window, I'm at the door.
So, this is my favorite question to ask whenever we get to this part. Why did you pick this record?
So I personally wanted to pay homage to DC punk scene, and Black Eyes is like one of the quintessential DC bands, and like somebody that we definitely draw a lot of influence on, like from in Bacchae, and they're just one of the best bands to ever come out of this area. So I just wanted to share that with whoever's listening to the podcast. Maybe you hadn't heard of this band before and wanted to learn more about them. I mean, like they definitely did a lot more outside of DC and went on tour with Q and Not You and like were really successful, but broke up like pretty much at like the height of everything before like they even had a chance to tour on the second album. So having this album be something that we can go a deeper dive into and like represent for DC like real hard was really exciting to me.
Yeah, and we also picked it because I think, Rena, you listened to it around the time, you listened to Black Eyes around the time they were active, but I didn't come to Black Eyes until about a year ago. So it was like a gap in my DC music knowledge, and so we have very different perspectives because like we were listening first exposed to Black Eyes at different points in time.
Yeah, like the difference between like being an adult or like, you know, a kid growing up in the music scene, like learning about new music around the area, like is a completely different experience. And coming back to this as an adult now is like just like blowing my mind.
Cool. Well, before we get into our opinions on the record, I'll lay out some basics for it for those unfamiliar. So you mentioned they were from Washington, D.C. They formed in 2001. They play a version of post-punk that draws so many influences from like noise rock, art punk, post-hardcore, just kind of a mash of a lot of different things. Maybe there's probably some screamo influence in there as well. More spaz stuff. But the record was released on Discord Records, and so for those who weren't really familiar with the band, the way they were often introduced to people was kind of like what the band setup was. So I distinctly remember this being how they were pitched to me. So they were a 2 bassist, 2 drummer, 2 vocalist, 1 guitarist band. So the personnel on the record is Jacob Long on bass, Hugh McElroy on bass, Dan Caldas on drums, Mike Kanan on drums, and Daniel Martin McCormick on guitar. So, and then if you like actually look deeper in the liner notes, it says like they all contribute vocals. Everybody does some percussion. Everyone, for the most part, plays some bass except for maybe like one of the drummers. So like it was a very collaborative record, and the record was mixed, recorded, and produced by Ian MacKaye and Don Zientara at Inner Ear Studio. I found a really awesome video on YouTube of them recording in the studio, and Ian MacKaye and Don are in there. And like, I don't think I've ever seen a picture of Don before either. So that was interesting just to watch how Ian kind of works in the studio, and it was really impressive. Just he seemed like he's just a guy kind of hanging out, but then he'd have an idea and come like go do something for it. Like they were trying to get a specific drum sound. That was like the main point of the video. And they like just tried with like different drums a few times, or hitting at different places and microphone placement. And it's like, and then he finally goes and gets like another drum and brings it in. He's like, "Ask and you shall receive." And so it's like, it was just fun to watch because I don't think I've ever seen any like studio footage of Ian MacKaye. Well, let's get into the opinion side of it. So, who wants to go first? I guess, Rena, we'll let you go first since it was kind of your main pick. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like, I mean, you already went over some of the things that I wanted to talk about too, about like it being produced by Ian MacKaye and at Inner Ear Studios, which is another like DC area studio that is just like so important for the area. And so, I mean, like, I've been there to record with other bands, and it's been like such an amazing eye-opening experience about how Don like works with the recording studio and bringing in other producers and stuff like that. And it's just like so much history going into that studio space. So like hearing albums that come out of it and like really relating to them, it means a lot. Like with this album in particular, I feel like they focus a lot, as you already told us and the listeners here, about the rhythm section, like the drums, the bass, like all of that, like is such to the forefront on this album. And like as a bassist, I'm often listening for that rhythmic section and paying close attention to what the drums are doing, what the bass is doing. And then in this instance, the percussion is just like so intense because there's so much of it and there's so many people on the record. So I thought it was just like cool in that aspect.
Katie, what did you think of it?
Like I said, I first listened to this album about maybe a year and a half ago, because someone was talking. Actually, I think my partner Matt was talking about it, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this band. I should probably listen to them. And I remember just like listening to the album at work and just being like totally blown away. And like I listened to the album like, just like 9 times in a row, like throughout the day, like the first day I heard it. And I guess I really like everything that Rena said about, the bass and the percussion, and also the vocals it's just so unusual to have 2 lead vocalists who, like, sometimes they're singing in unison, but a lot of times they're singing different lyrics at the same time. But like focusing on the rhythm of their voices and the pitch of their voices. So their voices become more like instruments than like, I don't know, like, when sometimes you listen like a lot of the emo oriented music that we were talking about earlier, like you get really focused on the lyrics because, they're talking about sad emotions or whatever. But with Black Eyes, you have to listen to the songs several times before you realize like, oh, they're saying this, because you get so lost in like the percussiveness of the lead singer's voices.
Yeah. I mean, so like Katie, I totally remember when you like started listening to Black Eyes and you sent Bacchae an email and you were like, drop everything that you're doing. Everybody must listen to this album before the next practice. And like, I was just like, I know Black Eyes. This is one of my favorite albums ever, but I just like loved the passion and drive that you had to like share it. And it's just like, if you hadn't heard it before, like, it's just like, it's outrageous. Like I like describe it as like chaos, like just over like a groove. Like it just like makes you want to dance. It makes you like just want to like go crazy. And then like once you actually do listen to the lyrics and like the themes that they present on this record are like pretty heavy, and like you don't even like realize unless you're like seriously honed in on what they actually wrote, because like you're just like your whole body is just like electrified from the actual music.
Dylan, what do you think of this record?
I was pretty intrigued. I have seen this album cover and heard about this band before, but never really dug deeper. I had seen them described as dance punk, and I think that probably gave me a different expectation of what they would sound like. But I really thought that the way that they used the double rhythm sections, it's really one of the best examples of that I've ever heard. Because there are bands that do 2 drummers and they don't really justify having a second drummer. But I really felt like this record, they not only justified having 2 drummers, they justified having 2 bass players, which is even more rare. I want to say there was another screamo band that maybe did that.
I feel like
you get these interesting, like, one bass player kind of holding a groove and another one playing almost like a counterpoint to the melody, or acting more like the melodic lead of the song, which was interesting.
Katie, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to think. There's also a band that has 2 drummers that's pretty mainstream, and I can't think of who it is now, but it's like it feels like it's just for show. But with Black Eyes, it's like totally purposeful, like having 2 drummers.
Slipknot had a percussionist. Trying to think of a 2 drummer band.
I'll try to look it up.
I'm trying to think of like which ones I'm aware of. There's Kylesa, but they're like a sludge band.
Yeah.
There's there's that North Carolina band from like the early 2000s. What was their name? Cherry something. They had 2 drummers. I can't remember.
This is the Allman Brothers had 2 drummers, and Slipknot, the Melvins, Cult of Luna.
Actually, I can't.
Yeah, I was trying to think of another 2 bass band too. I want to say that there is one, but I can't think of who it is.
It's someone like Mihai Edresh, or it's a screamo band. Well, Page 99, I'm pretty sure they used
Oh,
Page 99
2 bass
doesn't.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
got like.
I mean, there's like
almost
9 people.
yeah.
It looks like the Strawberry Alarm Clock from the 60s. They had 2 bassists. But I don't know if you can tell that from listening to them.
I don't know.
Not too.
I think
That's Incense Peppermint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Five legs. Five legs. I get up to move. Five legs. I get up to move. In my arms. I might put up a fight. In my arms. I might put up a fight. Five legs.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's cool that like basically the melody of the song comes from the bass in this band, which makes perfect sense. You have 2 bass players, might as well use one of them for the melody. But like typically the guitarist tends to hold the melody, and not so much the case here. Like their guitarist on this record, it's treated as just kind of like this extra thing, almost more like like an extra voice on the record.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's like no like chords being played here.
So I had heard I'm trying to think of the last when I first heard about Black Eyes. I want to say it's probably like 2008-ish when I remember like their name being around on blogs a lot, and like I would see like, oh, that's supposed to be a really great band, and I just like never listened to it. And this is during the Blogspot era where you have to like download everything. And so I distinctly remember downloading the album, burning a copy to CD, listening to it on the way to work, and then by the time I like got out of my car, I was like, shit, this record is great. Like
Like, or did it hype you up for your shift that day?
yeah, my shift working at Barnes and Noble.
Awesome throwback.
It was just funny because like I hadn't heard them before. I just only heard good things about them. I don't know what it was about it that I was just like, I'm gonna burn a copy of this, and then like I listened to it. I listened to it a bunch probably that year, and then it had been a really long. Then it went years without listening to it again.
Mm-hmm.
So like coming back to it for this episode, I was like, damn, this is still really good. This wasn't just me being like, oh, I like this obscure band, you know, like an early 20-something would, but it's like, man, this record is still really good.
Yeah, and I feel from start to finish, like Katie and I have talked about this in other like conversations about like listening to a record like in its entirety in the order in which that it's been set up by the band. And this record, like, you definitely like should listen to it in order and like let the music feed into each other as they go into the next track, because it just seems so like you know, they really like, I guess took a lot of like time and energy in figuring out how they wanted it to flow, and you could really feel that by listening to it in its entirety.
Yeah, we say on the show all the time, sequencing is crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah, like we definitely like stressed over like the sequencing of our records all the time, but I don't know how people like consume music after you put it out into the world, and there's always like playlist and shuffle and stuff like that. But like if you have the ability to just listen to it as it's intended with the sequencing, it's just such a special experience.
Yeah. I also feel like with Black Eyes album, it starts off like very like rock, you know, like it's not too weird, and then it slowly progresses into like, you know, you're getting like some like weird like free jazz influence by the time you're at like track 9, and it's like, and you're ready for it then. But
Right.
like, you know, the opening tracks kind of like ease you into like how weird it's gonna get later.
But it's like such a distinct, like I know I've said this several times, but like a distinct DC sound. Like it's like this band could be from nowhere else other than Washington DC, and this album could have come out on no other label other than Discord Records. Like it's just so like to the T a DC punk band.
My very first note from listening to this record from the first track was, "This is DC as fuck."
Yeah.
It's that Fugazi rhythm. I mean, there's definitely a really, really big Jolie influence, and Brendan Canty influence as well. But it does, like you said, it gets into a point where it's like, oh, they're really weird. Like they really went pretty far out there. And some of my favorite moments are like the guitar is just like kind of just detuning on one string, and like there's one it sounded like there were egg shakers at one point, and just kind of like a jazzy like ride cymbal thing, and lots of guitar delay, and the vocals were doing this like Brian Eno sounding like kind of chanting, which was really interesting. And this is a record that, Katie, you mentioned free jazz influence. This is a record where you can definitely tell that they not only listen to but understand free jazz, because a lot of experimental bands, especially earlier like art punk bands, like to think of themselves as being influenced by free jazz. This to me sounds like an extension of like an Ornette Coleman double quartet free jazz record. Like they actually did bring that influence into punk in a really exciting way, and not just like, we're gonna make a bunch of noise and it's free jazz. Like,
yeah, it was very intentional. It's just they did it really well.
And they're a band that, from what I've read, their live performances involved a lot of jamming. And that kind of going back to the sequencing point about this record, it sounds very much like they had, these are the songs that we're going to play, you know, roughly, you know, with the rhythm section kind of laid out. And then vocally and guitar wise, they kind of, it sounds like they're jamming a lot. I mean, and that progression of ideas through the record, pretty interesting.
Did any of you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I unfortunately like never got to see them live. Like when they were in existence here in DC, like it was just such a short period of time, and I just never got to go see them play.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if anybody watched any of the footage that was on YouTube of them playing live.
Yeah, the live performances on YouTube, definitely have watched those several times. And I'm so jealous that I was not able to be there.
Actually, if any listeners need a recommendation as a video entry point to Black Eyes, there's a video of that for Deformative where someone has put all the lyrics on the bottom of the screen, and then it's just a bunch of like shots edited together of them playing like several different live shows, and it really like gives you a good overview of, you know, of like the way the singers operated together, and like the drummers, you know, drumming like facing each other in profile in front of the audience. And the username is the Debaser, I think, is the person who uploaded, the user that uploaded the Deformative video that I'm talking about.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, like that song comes in the middle of the record too, so like it just kind of like wakes you back up. Like the songs before it are more groovy, like a little bit like less space with like how much vocals are going back and forth. I mean, the vocals are still chaotic, but like the music is a little slower. And then Deformative comes and it's just like smash a table, like, you know, everything's like gone crazy again. It's so wild, like it's just so energetic. But then like the lyrics are like super dark. Like again,
yeah.
like goes back and forth with these themes that are like really important in like experiences in life, and then like over like this crazy dance, jazzy, like percussion driven music.
It's kind of like the fan favorite song, the way like the crowd reacts in some of those live videos, and then like I was reading a lot of comments online of people just talking about that song specifically, like being one of their favorites.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. Like that song, A Pack of Wolves. Yeah, like that. Like that's early on in the record, like the second song, and that song just like is flawless to me. Such an amazing, perfect song.
That one's cool because it like even lyrically it starts off with like a reference to like Rage Against the Machine. The "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me" line is like the very first thing in the song, and apparently the song itself is about like, I think this is the interpretation, it's about like the misogyny and like the alternative music scene, or like just like the macho attitudes at the time, which I could see that still being a very big. Yeah,
That's
this was like
green within the music industry, so
yeah,
very, very timely discussion.
yeah, this week especially.
Yeah, but again, like these like are important topics to talk about, and then it's just like you're like hearing it over like this beautiful, awesome, amazing music, and then you go back and like read the lyrics, and you're like, oh, like it makes you think a lot more.
Yeah, there's one song specifically that was just like, oh fuck, that like hits really hard. I'm trying to remember which song it is specifically though.
Hopefully you can think of it. Like song number. Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
Is it Pack of Wolves or King's Dominion? Maybe?
Or is it 9? Like there's a lyric in 9 that's like, I love you more than the last sweet fruit, and it's like drawn out so much that like, you just like feel it. They have such great lyrics. I don't know. It could be any song.
Yeah, it probably is multiple songs, honestly, because I was just constantly like when reading through them on like Genius, like people put their little notes in there about like what they think the song's about, and it's like this stuff is deep. Which I mean, they're a Discord band, so it's not surprising that there's like a lot of deep stuff in their lyrics, but
right.
Tomorrow, always darkness joy. Today we're avoiding the question, thinking if all disconnected, screaming. I was only screaming, sleeping, sounding, screaming. With one voice we leave out everything. This city's burning, burning while we're screaming. This city's burning, burning while we're mourning. This city's burning, burning. The fires are closing in. This city's burning, burning. Our lips are just opening.
it's funny you mentioned it as being a Discord band for sure. I was looking at like the other records they put out in 03. So like essentially like the glory days of Discord are over, you know, like the classic days. Like, so this is the part of the time where like Discord was still really active, like putting out a lot of records, and like, but like they're maybe not the most like well-known records today. So I was looking at what else they put out. They put out a Lungfish record, Love is Love.
Oh, nice.
Probably one of the like longer running names in the label as far as like how many records they put out past like the prime of the label. But Antelope put out a self-titled EP. I listened to that EP as well. I was like, oh, this is really good. There's a Q and Not You like 7-inch. There's a Beauty Pill record, which is Farrakhan and Smart Went Crazy people, and then like an instrumental band called Tone. I was super unfamiliar with them, and then another one called El Guapo, which featured members of Chick Chick Chick. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, me either.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. So this Black Eyes record was the label's hit for that year.
Yeah, like, and I mean, as I was saying, like they just they had another record come out like the next year, but like broke up, and they were only a band for a few years. Like it's just like that amount of influence that you can like put into like such a small period of time and still be relevant. Like 17 years later, like it's 2020 now, and it's like we're talking about an album that came out in 2003 that hopefully like somebody listening here will be like, oh, like I want to listen to this and hear what this band is about. And like I feel like the music just speaks for itself.
Dylan, do you have any? Yeah, I was gonna say.
I listened to a little bit of the next record. I didn't have time to dive in and listen to the whole thing. They did add a sax player.
Yeah,
and
jammy.
They started that one out on the weird side. Kind of.
It's like that throughout.
Yeah, it's just more experimental and like jammy and more
jazz
instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's just let's throw in
I heard that I heard that like a big reason that they broke up was that half of the band wanted to go in the direction of Cough and be kind of like really experimental, and the other half of the band, wanted to do more of like a rock sound, and that's like why they disbanded. I've also heard rumors that there was some interpersonal stuff too, but it sounded like it sounded like everyone wanted to go in different musical directions, and that's why they broke up.
Yeah, I mean, like Hugh like runs a recording studio with his husband Kevin, and like when the studio was like in Columbia Heights, they like recorded some bands that like are also like really instrumental in DC, like Priest, Give, and that's just really cool that they were able to work in that direction and do recording and stuff and still have influence within like the DC punk scene.
I was going to ask if anybody had a chance to listen to a little bit of that second record, Cough, because I did, and I was like, I don't really like this.
It's not the same vibe at all.
Mm-mm.
I mean, like, it's hard. Like, I mean, like with a great record like the self-titled, it's like people want you to just do the self-titled record again. It's just like it's difficult as an artist like to not have the ability to just like be a little bit more experimental and go off in a different direction if you're feeling that. But yeah, it's hard.
I definitely sampled some of their I think Daniel and Jacob started some projects after, like Me and
Ital,
yeah. It definitely goes in a more experimental direction than what Black Eyes were doing.
Okay.
But they also play in a lot of digital stuff too, so it's almost like a different thing entirely. But I guess the tone is still there, like that experimentation is still there.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Justin, that Cough is definitely not. Well, it's my cup of tea if I've like smoked a bowl, I guess. but I have heard from a lot of people who are into more experimental music that it's like a lauded release. Like Matt Cohen is a big fan of it.
Oh, sure. I totally can see Matt being a huge fan of that. I mean, like, I think you have to be in the right space to want to consume it, and that's probably true of the self-titled too. Like, honestly, let's be real, it's not the most like easily approachable music from that year. Like, but if you are looking for something different and experimental and jazzy and dancey and screamy, like it has all of those aspects and elements in one place.
Yeah, I was gonna say regular listeners of the show might be surprised at how much Justin and I enjoy this one.
Yeah, we've gone on record to not being like the biggest fans of like art punk stuff. Typically, though, it's just because most of the time they think just because they threw a horn in it and they honked on it for a little while, then all of a sudden it's like high art. It's like, well, I mean, you got to do something else. You can't just throw a horn in there.
Oh man, I can't wait for the next Bacchae album to just have like 3 different horns. Like our drummer Eileen plays bassoon and always has been wanting to try to get it on a song somehow. So like, sorry if you don't like the next release we do. If there's like a bassoon and like trumpets and like saxophones.
I am a big proponent of bringing saxophones into rock music again. I think they sound really cool. They can be done in a way that's interesting.
X-Ray Specs.
Oh yeah. Like, oh my gosh. So our friends did an X-Ray Specs a cover band for Halloween a few years ago. And our friend Farah sang and our friend Laura played sax. And it was so fun.
I mean, I'm not anti-sax. I'm just like...
Yeah. I mean, like it has to be intentional if you're going to throw a horn in there. Like, it has to serve a purpose, right?
I think we've all been to way too many like basement noise shows where like there was somebody with a sax player there and it was just like... It's like, you weren't trying to do anything.
Oh my gosh, too real. Well, lucky for us right now, there are no shows. No. Not really lucky. Just kidding. I was like, I would love to be in some dark basement right now watching a noise project with like an out of tune instrument.
Yeah, I will stand in a concrete, unfinished basement and listen to the most experimental series of delay pedals.
Oh my gosh!
That's like my partner loves noise music, and I've definitely gone to some shows with him where I've been like, I'm mad, I have to leave right now.
Yes.
I'm actually kind of friends with a noise artist, and because he wouldn't call himself a musician, and I've definitely been to his shows where it was just like, no, it's just really loud static for an unbearable amount of time.
Like, it's still art. More power to you. If you're a noise artist, like, do your thing. Do you go out into the world and make the sound that you want to make? No shame. No shame.
But I won't be there.
Fair. Yeah. Well, I hope people listen to this album. I hope we didn't scare you off from thinking that it's too out of the box, but
yeah, or scare you off from our noise album that's coming out.
Our upcoming album that's just the same.
I'm really looking forward to the Bacchae noise improvisations with reeds and brass.
Yes.
So I was thinking about this yesterday. I was reading an article about how there are these restaurants, it was specifically about a local restaurant in DC called Mid-Atlantic Seafood. It was a City Paper article, and the article's about how the restaurant was was having like virtual versions of itself on Grubhub and all these like online food ordering, and like you can do this legally. Like you can just be like, you could be like a McDonald's and just be like, oh, like Chef William's Fancy Burgers, on Grubhub, and like there are all these restaurants that are doing this to try to like appeal to like different tastes or whatever. And when I was reading this last night, I was like, oh, what if we like made like 3 fake bands? Like we could like do like a different version of Bacchae that's like, an EDM or like, whatever. So I think this is a good idea, and we should do like a free jazz version of Bacchae, but like call it something else, but it's the same, the same group members.
You've thought a lot about this, huh? And this is the first time I'm hearing about it. I can't wait to take this to the chat after this.
Yeah.
I mean, like, some of our stuff is like weird, but not that level. So I feel like we could do it though.
Well, and then you could also go in the other direction. Like you could go like harsh noise Bacchae, and then like the other way you could be like just straight up a pop record, like super synthy, like just do everything on all sides of the spectrum.
I was thinking it would all be on like the harsh noise, like drum and snare, drum and bass, and like free jazz, just like.
Well, a band did this.
Loops.
I think that I don't know if this band is from Florida. Like they're called Pool Kids, and they did like a screamo like EP, like just out of like nowhere on like April Fools, and just like called themselves Pool, and it's like so in your face, like screamy, and like they're like more of like a pop rock band, and like it was just like so awesome, like in like all these different crazy time signatures and stuff. And it was just like, yo, like if y'all do this for real, like I would go see that live, because it was just like mind blowing to hear them do that kind of music when they're just like more pretty, like nice, beautiful, very articulate, like pop rock music.
I think it's really cool that you specifically chose this record, but because it was also like an influence on the band. And I guess that comes from does it come from just being like a DC band that you just like had a little bit of pride with, or was it like just straight up like, no, I would have liked this the same way even if it was from another part of the country or different era?
Like choosing this album?
Well, I guess like you say,
they have like, I feel like, if they weren't a DC band, like I'd still have like connected to this in a way, but I feel like I personally like know of the band just from being like a native of the area, and like also drawing influence specifically from like their rhythm section and taking that as inspiration for like what we do in certain songs.
I feel like, yeah, like I still would have picked it because, like, regardless of where the members were from, because just everything that every song, like the vocals are just so unbelievable. You know, like you can listen to like Disturbed, you know, like sometimes like in mainstream music they'll be like, oh wow, you know, and it's just like, whoa, what is, or Korn, or you know, like Korn, and you're just like, what did they just do? Like that's like speaking to me on this like, you know, like guttural level. But like with Black Eyes, it's like the entire album is like that, you know? Like it's like every song you're just like, whoa, I can't believe that they just did that.
They go
Like how did they even think to do that and then like not be embarrassed, like to like, you know, experience, you know, just be like, you know.
Yeah, like the noises that come out like are just so intriguing to me, and both vocal deliveries are just so unique.
Yeah, I thought when I was listening to it, I was like, this has like vocally the way they're overlapping each other and doing like different things at the time. It kind of was like, man, this is like a harsh version of like Matt and Kim.
Oh my gosh, that's a perfect comparison. That is really good.
One of the vocalists, I want to say Hugh, I think, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Like he even sounds like the dude from Matt and Kim, kind of.
That is awesome. Oh, shout out Matt and Kim. Love it. Yeah, I mean, like, dual vocalist is, like, cool to me. Like, Bacchae doesn't, we do, like, changing off on vocals, like, every so often. But, like, we have been, like, told that those are, like, some of people's favorite songs, like, when both of us sing. And, like, that's definitely, like, influenced by, like, bands like Black Eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, my favorite Hot Water Music records were always the earlier ones where, like, Chuck and Chris were singing over top of each other, essentially. Oh. So when they went slick and mainstream, because some producer was like, "Oh, we can't understand you because you're singing over each other," it's like that's when I kind of fall off. But
yeah.
Let's see. I'm checking my notes, see if I have anything I missed.
I think we got into it.
Yeah. I do. It's funny, you were talking about the sequencing earlier, and the whole record does work better as a whole, you know, as one piece of art. But I do distinctly remember having the final track, "Letter to Raoul Peck," on a mix CD. I don't know why I picked that one song to put on there. Maybe it's because it's like so vocal based, and it just starts with them just like yelling over top of each other. Yeah. It weirdly felt like it could have existed on its own. Probably that's probably why I didn't pick something like Deformative. Like this song "Letter to Raoul Peck" feels like it can be on a mix, and it like works by itself. Probably because it's the last track on the record.
And I was gonna say, like, because it's the last track, like it was like it like makes sense there, and also like the repetitive like singing and like the lyrics just like being over and over at the outro and stuff. Like it just like it sits on its own, but is a good end cap to the whole entire record. And the record itself is like 30 minutes long, so it's like if you have 30 minutes that you just like need to like get out of your head and like have some really cool music and noise in your earbuds, then go for it. Dive in and let us know if you listen to it.
I also wanted to say, like, one thing that this album has too is it has two really great moments, like, for the audience to like shout along, or if you're just listening to the record in your car. In Pack of Wolves, like the part where they go, "A pack of wolves, 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 wolves," and then in Deformative, when they scream, "I'm 16, driving south from Baltimore," and it's like, oh yeah, I've felt that and still feel, you know, like it's such a good, like those are just the two like most perfect vocal moments I think in the whole record.
Yeah. And also with the intro to the last song that you were just talking about, like there's no music, like it's just vocals like at the beginning, and I think that's so sick. Like this album is amazing.
It was funny, like I watched the one live set that's on YouTube, and it's like the set from like Rutgers, which is wild. But I was looking at the people in the audience, and like people were singing along with it. I was like, What? How are you singing? How do you even know what they're actually saying?
It's so funny, like at that time period, like if I didn't have like a record with the like album lyrics, if like I had like a burned copy or like was just listening to it and didn't have the lyrics in front of me, like I had like a notebook that I would try to write down like the lyrics that I'm listening to, and it's like this album, like it's just like give it up. Like you might not be able to understand like every other word, but yeah, tried.
I assume this one came with liner notes because they seem to be pretty readily available online.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just like I did not have it.
Yeah. I knew. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts on the record?
Listen to it. Support DC music. Thank you.
Also, just listen to, it's like the complete antithesis of like popular music right now. It's just like wild to listen to something that's so, I don't know, it's like, where did this come from? I don't know, if you just want to be totally tickled.
And also, it doesn't feel dated in any sense of the word. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things from like 2003, like that we overviewed in the beginning that like I can't listen to now as an adult at any point ever.
Yeah. The lyrics are so timeless and also timely because they're dealing, with like like growing up, sexuality,
like abuse,
misogyny. Yeah, like it's just the lyrics are so good.
Yeah, I think that was the song that I was like reading and I was like, fuck, still really relevant lyrics. This is almost a 20-year-old record and
yeah,
we got a couple years to go before it hits that, but still.
Yeah, you're rounding up. Like, let's
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
2003.
It'll be here before you know it. We lost 2020, so
yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Dylan, did you have anything extra?
No, I would reiterate a lot of what is said. It does have a really timeless quality. The grooves on this record are just, they'll hook you immediately. And I'm glad that we talked about this record because I really could have completely lost this band. Never gotten what they were about. I might have grouped them in with like some of the other maybe like noise rock, garage rocky, lo-fi stuff of that time period, and completely overlooked it. So I'm glad we visited this one.
Yeah, thank you all so much for assigning us 2003 and like getting deeper into this record specifically. This was fun.
Yeah, I looked at that list of the records I sent you and I was like, what are they gonna pick? There's so much good stuff on here.
It was really hard, and that's why we needed a few days. It
was so hard.
We were in the chat, passing back and forth different albums, and it's just okay, now let's rank these ones and go from here. Which ones will you be most excited to talk about? How much can we talk about them? And then take it from there. And then we just were you know what, Black Eyes, we're both gonna have a different experience with the record, and it will be cool to talk about those perspectives.
Well, cool. Now let's all do our quick Taylor Swift hot takes for the day.
I was gonna say she does incorporate Coltrane's sheets of sound on this record in a really interesting way. I have not listened.
No, it's just funny because I was on Twitter today and it was just literally everyone has a take on Taylor Swift, or a take on takes, which was weird.
Yeah. That's the internet, especially when the Swifties come. So
yeah. I heard her next release is a free jazz album. I'm excited for that.
No, I heard that Taylor Swift is going to be guest vocals on the next Bacchae experimental record.
Get the most mainstream pop person and then put them on the most extreme experimental music.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for picking this record and doing the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. If you want to talk to us further past this podcast, you can find us on the internet. Our tags are all at Bacchae Band, BACCHAE BAND, across all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, etc.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We also are on all the social medias at PunkLottoPod, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a voicemail line. It is 202-688-PUNK. Call us and tell us your favorite Black Guy's track on this record. I tell people to call us all the time, and they never do. So.
That's all. Y'all have an actual number? That's wild.
Yeah, like Google Voice lets you set up phone numbers, so then we just were like, what can I use where the last four equal punk? And so it was like 202, which is a DC.
Yeah, that's wild. Look at y'all.
I was like, DC, that's a punk zip code, or area code. Discord's there.
Awesome.
It's funny, we had Elise from Oceanator on the show a couple weeks ago. And she was like,
Elise and Oceanator, like, seriously, love.
That new record is going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear the whole thing.
I pre-ordered the 90s bundle that comes with Pogs.
I did too.
And all this stuff. Like, I'm so excited to get that when it's released.
I wanted to say, like, your record too, like, the color, whatever that color is, I don't think I have a record that's even remotely like that. It's like kind of like the Coke bottle color, but it's like more solid. I don't know. It was a crazy color. Like I loved how that looked.
Like the record, actually.
Yeah. Your record.
Oh, the blue. Yeah.
Like it's beautiful color. Like Alex from Get Better, they chose it and sent it to us, and we were like, hell yeah! Like this is awesome, amazing color. Love it.
Yeah. So everyone go buy that record. Where can they get that?
Okay. So Get Better Records has their distro connected with Death Wish Records. So you can order the album through deathwish.com and also our Bandcamp, Bacchae, again, at Bandcamp. I don't know, the internet. It's all there. We have a link in all of our bios, like, so you can purchase anything or download. Our album is free for like digital download too. Like pay what you can or want, or $0. Like we just are happy that people are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it on one of those Bandcamp days, like the free no charges fees thing. So
yeah, they're doing that the first Friday of every month moving forward through 2020, and those have been like incredible for artists. Like since again, like a lot of income was lost like through touring and like being out in the world and stuff, but like Bandcamp just getting rid of their fees like and giving them all to the artists has been like super helpful. We were able to use some of our Bandcamp money that we received from purchases to donate to the Black Lives Matter Legal Defense Fund in DC. And we thank everybody that was able to support those efforts as well.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll make sure to include links to all that stuff in the show notes as well. So
great.
All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for this week. And thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, y'all.